Yeah, so the past two videos I published on my channel completely botched the audio. But as you could hear right now, we should be good to go. My levels are looking good. Both channels got audio, so I'm never going to do that ever again. You got my word. But anyways, now that we've cleared that up, as you can see from the title of this video, this one goes out to all my musicians. I'm here to talk about the importance of music theory. Music theory is one of my most favorite topics in the world. I could ramble about it for hours and hours. I'm not gonna create a masterclass unless you guys want me to do that. I'm more than happy to do something like that in the near future. I feel like that's a really realistic thing for me to do eventually. But in this video specifically, I do want to talk about keys and scales, which is really one of the most fundamental things you need to know as a producer. At the end of the day, music theory is going to be really the backbone of producing music and creating melodies and chords from scratch. To kind of put this in different terms, I guess music theory for a musician is equivalent to training for an athlete. Being able to work on your oral skills, learn how to play the piano, and for producers especially, you're going to be working with pianos a lot. I know in FL Studio we do have a piano roll right here, so it's important to learn basic music theory terms such as the different keys, the different modes. Actually, modes is a little bit of an advanced topic, but I think for this video today, we're going to focus on keys and scales only. So let's get right into it. This right here is all the different notes in music. It's just 12 notes we're dealing with, so don't let this intimidate you. It's much easier than it looks, but let's go ahead and talk about the white notes first. So as you can see on my screen right here, we got the letters C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. Musical alphabet consists of letters A through G. Anything after G simply doesn't exist. So this section of notes right here, from C to B, is called an octave. An octave is essentially a group of all the notes. And as you can see, my piano actually repeats all of these notes. I actually have a 61 key keyboard. I believe pianos go up to 88 keys. In music, there are not 88 notes. There's only 12 notes. These 12 notes are just repeated across the keyboard, as you can see how mine is right here. For an example, if we could take the note C, C is also right here, and also here, and here, and here. I just wrote another C right here. This will be the start of a new octave. And the same idea goes for the other way, but except this time it'll be backwards. So this one will be B right there. To help you find which note is which, that's where you want to look at the black keys, also known as the accidentals. You'll notice that there's pairs of 2 and pairs of 3. To help you sort of find C, I always suggest looking for the pair of 2 black keys. First black key, just go down 1 semitone, and then that's C right there for you. And also a semitone is just pretty much 2 notes adjacent to each other. And then a whole tone is 2 semitones. So for an example, C to D would be a whole tone. And then C to C sharp would be a semitone. So now that I mentioned C sharp, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the black notes. As you can see on my screen right here, I have them written in red. And if you're wondering, what do the hashtags mean? What do those B symbols mean? Hashtags are called sharps. A sharp is when a note's pitch value is increased by 1 semitone, and then a flat, which is the B symbol, is when a note's pitch value is decreased by 1 semitone. So as you can see, this black note specifically can either be referred as C sharp or D flat, depending on what key you're in. This is also known as enharmonics. Enharmonic is pretty much when one note has 2 different names that you can call it, depending on what key you're in. So if I could zoom in on one of these right here, we'll take F sharp for an example. F natural, the white F key right here, if we go up 1 semitone, it becomes a sharp, so an F sharp. But if we look at G, the white note right here, if we go down a semitone, it's still the same black note, but except it's G flat this time. So now that we've covered all the different notes, the next one I do want to talk about is scales. Scales is pretty much an order of what you can play notes in. This is probably the most common scale that musicians will play in. Minor scale is also a really popular one. I'd say major and minor are really the top 2 most frequently used scales in music today. But we'll come back to the minor scale in a moment. Major scale is often associated as a happy sounding scale. And if you're wondering, what did I write here? Why did I write W's and H's? This is pretty much the formula to the major scale on how you would play it on the keyboard. So this means whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. These are going to be the different steps you want to play when playing a major scale. So the easiest scale to play is going to be all the different white notes, which is going to be C major. So as you can see, I did follow the formula here for whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. C to D is a whole, so that checks off. D to E is a whole, checks off. Then we got E to F, which is a half, or a semitone, one semitone. And then F to G is a whole note, because it's got two semitones. And then we got another whole note between G to A, and then another whole, A to B, and then it ends with a half from B to C. So that's kind of how C major works. If we were to pick a random note, such as A major, you could start with the note A rather than C like we did previously. So A major, we're going to follow the same formula we did right here, which is going to be whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And for A major, it's going to be a little bit different because we are going to implement some black notes here now. In the key of A major, we are going to be using the black notes F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. So we want to keep that in mind before we play this A major scale. So I follow the same formula here as I did before, with whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Got A to B, which is a whole, so we could check that off. We got B to C sharp this time, because we're using the black note, which is another whole, and then C sharp to D, which is a half, then D to E, whole, then E to F sharp, because that is two semitones right there, which makes up a whole note, and then from F sharp to G sharp, that is another whole, and then we end on A right here, which is just one semitone, so a half. So to summarize what we talked about so far, we talked about the major scale, we talked about the 12 different notes on the keyboard, and we also talked about the formula, which is going to be the pattern of whole and half notes. So next up, we got the minor scale. This one is often associated as sad, although that's not entirely true, but it is really what it's known for. Obviously, the minor scale won't always sound sad, but it is going to be generalized as sad, if that makes any sense. So we talked about the major scale formula, which was whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So we're familiar with this one already. But with the minor scale, it's a little bit different. To make this a little bit easier, we actually start the minor scale right here. So we start on a whole and then a half right away. So whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. So as you can see, this is actually the same pattern, except the minor scale will start here and then it'll continue over here. So if we take the new formula that we have here for the minor scale, that's going to be slightly altered compared to the first formula we did with major. We're actually going to be using the key A minor, which is going to be the same as C major, which will be all the different white notes. So the first one we want to do is a whole step, which is A to B, so we can cross that out. Then B to C, which is a semitone, so that's a half. Check that off. Then we got two whole notes. Check those two off. Then we got another half between E and F. Then F, G, then G to A. So that right there is the entire minor scale formula. So now that we talked about the major and minor scales and the formulas to play them, another thing that's important to know is actually the key signatures, but I'll actually cover that for a different video in the future, but I do want to write it out for you guys just so you know that it exists. So this is a little bit of a preview of all the different key signatures that exist out there. These are just a bunch of them I wrote out. It's not every single one, but if you guys do want me to cover a different video talking all about this, just let me know in the comment sections below. Be more than happy to talk about this more into detail. Obviously, it'll be a very long video if I talk about this in this video, so let me know if you guys would like a key signatures video in the future. So I am actually going to wrap up the video right there. I don't want to go into too much detail about everything. Just want to give you guys the basics. So to summarize everything we talked about and learned today, we learned about the major scale, the minor scale, major scale formula, the minor scale formula. We also learned about semitones, whole and half notes. And then we talked about the 12 different notes. We talked about the white notes, the black notes, also known as accidentals, and the different enharmonic equivalations there are for the accidentals. And then we briefly overviewed key signatures, which I'm more than happy to cover in a future video. Once again, let me know in the comment section below if you guys want that video on me covering all the different key signatures, how you can learn it. Yeah, so that was a quick little introductory on music theory. We talked about really the most basic things there is to know about music theory. We're not even like a fraction into music theory. It's honestly the biggest topic ever, and I definitely see myself creating more music theory videos down the road. If you guys do want to learn some more about music theory, drop a like and a comment on this video. See you in the next one.